In the frozen expanse of the Arctic, a group of scientists stumbled upon a 40,000-year-old ice block. Naturally, they thought they'd hit the prehistoric jackpot and found a mammoth. Finally, a giant furry elephant. "Jurassic Park, here we come," said Dr. Jenkins. But no, it wasn't a mammoth. It was a man. Yes, a full-grown, 30-something-year-old guy, frozen solid. "Oh great, we found Captain Caveman," muttered one of the researchers. Excited and a bit freaked out, they lugged their icy human popsicle back to the lab. They cranked up the heaters, hoping to thaw him out faster than a microwave burrito. As the ice melted, the scientists geared up for an autopsy. "Time to see what makes this ancient dude tick," said Dr. Thompson, waving around his scalpel like a maestro conducting a symphony. But wait, plot twist. They found out his cells were still alive. Not just that, his brain waves were off the charts. "Are we sure we didn't just defrost a caveman genius?" someone joked. "Maybe he's the Einstein of the Ice Age." Realizing this guy might actually be alive, they sprang into action. They slapped an oxygen mask on him, injected glucose, and even whipped out the defibrillator. With a dramatic zap, they managed to revive him. The room was filled with the beeping of monitors and the scent of melted ice. "Ladies and gentlemen, we give you, the Iceman," announced Dr. Jenkins, doing his best game show host impression. The Iceman, however, wasn't exactly thrilled. He woke up surrounded by people in masks and immediately freaked out. "Oh no, it's an alien invasion," he probably thought. But Dr. Stanley, quick on his feet, yanked off his mask and hood, revealing his scruffy beard and hair. "See, buddy, we're all human here. No aliens, promise." Slowly but surely, the Iceman calmed down. "Okay, you're not aliens. Cool, cool." Dr. Stanley then gave him a sedative, and the Iceman drifted off, probably dreaming about mammoth steaks and cave paintings. And so, the scientists saved the day, defrosting and reviving a man who had been on ice for 40,000 years. The Iceman, still groggy, probably wondered if he'd just woken up from the world's longest nap. Next time, he might have thought, "I'll stick to the Stone Age tanning beds." The scientists couldn't believe their luck. Not only was the Iceman alive, but his cells produced a unique protein that made him a human popsicle capable of surviving extreme cold. "Forget cryogenics, we just found the real-life Mr. Freeze," someone joked. Excited about a potential immortality drug, they prepped for dissection. But Dr. Stanley, our hero with a conscience, argued, "Hey, he's not a frog in biology class. He deserves the same rights as the rest of us." So, the dissection was paused, much to the relief of Chad. The Iceman. Since he was more likely to freak out at a smartphone than use it, the scientists created an artificial Stone Age playground for him. And guess what? It worked like a charm. Chad lit fires with sticks, crafted hunting tools, and even caught wild hogs. "It's like we brought Survivor to the lab," quipped one of the researchers. But one fateful day, while fishing in his little pond, Chad found a shiny tap and thought, "Jackpot." He stashed it away like a treasure, but curiosity got the better of him. Climbing up the water hose, he discovered a door. When he opened it and saw the scientists, he realized he was in a cage. He freaked out, howling and thrashing like a rock star trashing a hotel room. The guard had to use a tranquilizer dart. "Welcome to Jurassic Park," muttered the guard. When Chad woke up, he was despondent, like a teenager who just found out their favorite band broke up. He started a hunger strike, which prompted Dr. Stanley to step in. Entering Chad's habitat, Stanley tried to communicate. Chad, however, wasn't having it and waved his arms, signaling, "Dude, back off." Stanley, ever the optimist, smiled. Chad shoved him to the ground and tested him with a rock, like a caveman version of a job interview. After some sniffing and checking, Chad finally relaxed, realizing Stanley was indeed one of his kind. Despite the language barrier, they became fast friends. Stanley even gave him a name, Chad. "Why Chad?" someone asked. "Because Captain Caveman was already taken," Stanley replied with a grin. And so, Chad the Iceman and Dr. Stanley forged an unlikely friendship. Who knew that thawing out a prehistoric human would lead to such a heartwarming and hilarious adventure? As time went on, Stanley noticed a tattoo on Chad's chest featuring a bird called Beta. "Cool ink, bro," Stanley might have thought. To decode Chad's language, Stanley recruited a linguist. The language barrier was about to get a little less ancient. Then Stanley introduced his colleague, Dr. Diane, to Chad. Chad, being the inquisitive caveman he was, tried to check Diane's gender. Stanley quickly intervened, saying, "Whoa there, buddy, we have different customs now." Chad, trying to show affection, shared his meal with Diane. She took a bite and realized too late that it was raw meat. "Sushi's not supposed to be furry, right?" she mumbled, trying to smile. Later, Chad, thinking he was quite the charmer, attempted to trade his precious faucet for Diane. Stanley had to explain, "Dude, you can't just trade people for plumbing fixtures." Chad looked heartbroken, explaining through gestures that Diane reminded him of his long-lost wife and kids. Just when things couldn't get any more emotional, a helicopter appeared. Chad went nuts, shouting, "Beta!" at the chopper. Only after it flew away did he calm down, but he clammed up, drawing weird symbols on himself as if he was preparing for some caveman rave. Stanley, desperate for answers, consulted the local Inuit and discovered that in ancient polar legends, Beta was a divine messenger. Stanley hypothesized that 40,000 years ago, Chad's people had perished in a sudden ice age. Chad believed they'd angered the gods and set out to find them and atone. Instead, he ended up as a human ice cube. Seeing the helicopter, he mistook it for Beta and thought his time had come. Moved by Chad's story, Stanley decided to grant Chad his freedom. With his colleagues' help, Stanley hatched a plan. Cue the epic escape from the Arctic base. Chad, heading for familiar territory, moved through the snow and ice like a prehistoric Forrest Gump. Suddenly, a crevasse opened, separating Stanley from Chad. But Chad, determined, continued forward. He saw Beta again, grabbed its foot, and let it take him skyward. As Chad reached a certain height, he let go, ready to meet his fate. Instead of sadness, Stanley felt a sense of peace. Chad had finally fulfilled his ancient wish, and Stanley knew he had helped make it happen. "So long, Chad," Stanley whispered, smiling. "May you find your gods, or at least a really good prehistoric Wi-Fi signal." And that's the epic tale of Chad the Iceman. If you enjoyed this frosty adventure, make sure to hit that subscribe button, don't leave me hanging like a caveman on an ice block. And drop a comment below, what would you trade for a prehistoric plumbing fixture? Until next time, stay cool.